pre-break, I request Professor Kshitij Gupta, Director IIT, to say a few words. Sir.
So, I don't have a prepared talk, but I am very keen to share my thoughts on this very important topic of industry, academia interaction. I heard the previous speakers, a number of issues have been raised, and I'll give my response and my thoughts on them as and when it is necessary. What is expected of educational institutes? In fact, mostly when we discuss this topic of industry-academia interaction, which we do very often in all our meetings with alumni, with policymakers, with people in the government, with industry people, this issue always comes up. And I think when we discuss it, we mostly discuss it in the context of IITs, Indian Institute of Science, and maybe about 15, 20, 30 very good private institutions. Actually, there is a big divide, and Professor Vyas touched upon that point. After IITs, NITs, some of the good central universities, and some good private institutions, which may be 15, 20, 30, there is a sudden drop in the standards of the institutions. I'm talking of, if we just talk of engineering, I have in mind private colleges which have mushroomed all over the place. And so there's a sharp drop. Actually, the drop is not gradual. So what we discuss specifically in terms of industry-academia interaction in the context of our, I may use the word elite institutions, is really not applicable to the other institutions. So there is a divide, and we can divide it into two parts. Let me first talk about the lower part. I think my understanding is that at this stage, talking of industry-academia interaction is really futile. I don't think that kind of capability really exists in our private colleges, the large number of colleges where teachers could interact with industry, do some meaningful work for the industry and get the industry interested in supporting their activities. I think the situation is very hopeless, and Professor Vyas touched upon it in good detail. And I think that's where the responsibility of the other institutions, which are on the higher side, IITs, NITs, and other institutions, is very important. Actually, it is their responsibility to bring up the other institutions along with them, and they are doing it. I think that effort is going on. We are a large country with large population, very large number of students who aspire to be engineers. There is a need to bring up those institutions to a reasonable level very quickly. There are issues of curriculum and delivery of subjects. For example, Professor Vyas said that the NPTEL lectures really are not suitable for large number of students in the country who are not that good in English. I think these are very important issues which need to be addressed. The training of teachers. I think IITs has done a lot through various programs. For example, at least by the QIP, Quality Improvement Program of the government, which has been going on for last 25, 30 years. At least now there are sufficient number of faculty members and at least NITs and government institutions who have PhD degrees and who are guiding research and also working for industry. So that is one aspect. Let me talk a little bit about NITs. I'll come to IITs and these institutions a little later. Now, NITs are, in my assessment, the older NITs, which are now 15, 20, 30 years old, I think are well placed to interact, reasonably well placed to interact with industry. And they are also doing it to some extent. I think it's also important for those institutions to realize that they should focus on regional issues and regional problems. For example, recently I was in NIT Srinagar for a review of the institute, and they are doing reasonably good research, their laboratories are good, the level of teaching is also quite good, but their interaction with local industry is definitely lacking. For example, you might be knowing that NIT Srinagar is actually just adjacent to the Dal Lake, and we found that there are hardly any studies, systematic studies in collaboration with the local administration of the government on pollution control of Dal Lake, which is in real bad shape. It's highly polluted. So, like that, there are many other regional issues. So, I think to increase the industry-academia interaction, my advice to the regional institutions, to the NITs, to good colleges which are spread in various parts of the country is that they should focus initially on regional problems and regional industry. That would give them a very good scope for interaction with industry. Now coming to IITs and even Indian Institute of Science, I think that things have changed quite a bit in the last 10 years. Industry-academia interaction is increasing. Of course, there is scope for a lot of improvement. We have in the audience our Dean of Industrial Research, Professor Tulli, and Dr. Wali, who is the Managing Director of Foundation for Innovation, Technology and Transfer. These two gentlemen for IIT Delhi are facilitating the interaction of the faculty with industry in a great way. Technology transfers, filing of patents, copyrights, also working as an interface between the faculty and industry to work out projects and activities. And I would say that things have improved a lot in IITs, all IITs, over the last 10 years, and there is more awareness in the faculty to interact with industry. And we have also built in mechanisms, some mechanisms to promote industry-academia interaction. But definitely something more, much more is required to be done. As an administrator, when I just look from a faculty's point of view, I sometimes ask myself a question: why should a faculty work for industry project? So the answer to this is not easy. I think those who are interacting with industry are self-driven. They want to interact with industry, and therefore the interaction is generated. Sometimes the financial aspect is also important. In IITs we have provision for consulting, so some of the faculty they are doing consulting for industry, and that is a motivation for people to interact. But large number of faculty would be very happy to do very good research and publish their papers and receive national and international recognition in the scientific world, and they'll be quite happy. So this question always remains that what should be done to motivate the faculty and particularly the younger faculty to interact with industry, and that is the problem of administrators. Perhaps in the periodic assessments which are done, academia industry interaction could be one of the aspects which should be taken into account. But we also appreciate, particularly in systems like IIT, we give full freedom to our faculty. There is no, we don't mandate. Apart from the teaching, which is the primary activity, the rest is up to the faculty, how they like to divide their time. Somebody may just want to devote time to basic research, pure research, publish papers, very good. Somebody may want to write books, and we encourage that also. There are people who work with industry, take up large industry projects. We encourage that also. So at the moment, this is really self-driven, and but maybe we can include this as one of the parameters in faculty appraisal and faculty assessment, which will motivate them to interact more with industry. Students form a very important link in industry-academia interaction. A lot of PhD students, they we develop linkages with industry through number of PhD projects, master's thesis projects, and also BTech projects. So I think the student projects, by and large, maybe not the PhD, but the undergraduate, the BTech and the MTech projects should be industry driven. They should be relevant. Every project should be relevant to industry. And that's where the responsibility lies with the faculty members, that they should try to have projects for BTech and at BTech and MTech level which are relevant to industry. Mostly, again, we don't want to mandate there. Sometimes faculty members work out a BTech project or MTech project from their research agenda. That also is very good. And in fact, there are cases where some of the BTech students, even at BTech level students, have done very good research-oriented projects. We appreciate that also. But since we have a large number in terms of students, large numbers in terms of faculty, we also have a large bandwidth, and there are people who could be just focusing on research. There could be people who would be working on industry relevant projects. But the point which I am trying to make is that BTech and MTech projects should be mostly industry relevant, and that will promote industry interaction, industry academia interaction. Can I take a few more minutes? Now, about the industry, I think the problem is not only on the academia side, there is also a problem on the industry side. I think industry needs to be a little more patient, and they have to build the linkages and bridges over a long time. It should be long-term relationships. In fact, our experience is that industry is mostly looking for troubleshooting, for short projects, 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, and things like that. Now that is also very important, and we should cater to those needs of the industry. But industry should also look into long-term associations and some long-term goals in terms of product development and development of technologies and things like that. So they need to be more patient. For example, I always give one example. Somehow in Indian industry, the consortium approach is missing. I just don't understand why the automotive industry in our country cannot join hands and work in a consortium approach with number of institutions, at least for those technologies which are pre-competitive, a solar car or that kind of things. Even that is not happening. So I think industry also has to come forward and make more efforts. We have even on the panel our guests from industry, and but I think industry should also look for long-term relationships with academia. That will generate very fruitful interaction. And of course, when we talk of academia-industry interaction, let us not forget one very major sector of Indian industry, that is the rural sector, and which is also related to the what we call a societal impact of all that we are doing in institutions of higher learning. So I think we need to interact much more with the rural sector, and of course Professor Vyas mentioned about small scale industry, startups, a recent trend where our students are actually preferring to join startups at much better salaries is a very good indicator. It's a very good trend which I really appreciate, and which will definitely generate more interaction with industry. I think I like to stop at this point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a short tea break. We'll continue this panel discussion after the tea break and then continue for lunch. In the second session, we'll have more of industry panelists from the industries. So all are now cordially invited to join us for a tea.
Very important link in industry-academia interaction. A lot of PhD students, they we develop linkages with industry through number of PhD projects, master's thesis projects, and also BTech projects. So I think the student projects, by and large, maybe not the PhD, but the undergraduate, the BTech and the MTech projects should be industry driven. They should be relevant. Every project should be relevant to industry. And that's where the responsibility lies with the faculty members, that they should try to have projects for BTech and at BTech and MTech level which are relevant to industry. Mostly. Again, we don't want to mandate there. Sometimes faculty members work out a BTech project or MTech project from their research agenda. That also is very good. And in fact, there are cases where some of the BTech students, even at BTech level students, have done very good research-oriented projects. We appreciate that also. But since we have a large number in terms of students, large numbers in terms of faculty, we also have a large bandwidth, and there are people who could be just focusing on research, there could be people who would be working on industry relevant projects. But the point which I am trying to make is that BTech and MTech projects should be mostly industry relevant, and that will promote industry interaction, industry-academia interaction. Can I take a few more minutes? Now, about the industry, I think the problem is not only on the academia side, there is also a problem on the industry side. I think industry needs to be a little more patient, and they have to build the linkages and bridges over a long time. It should be long-term relationships. In fact, our experience is that industry is mostly looking for troubleshooting for short projects, 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, and things like that. Now that is also very important, and we should cater to those needs of the industry, but industry should also look into long-term associations and some long-term goals in terms of product development and development of technologies and things like that. So they need to be more patient. For example, I always give one example. Somehow in Indian industry, the consortium approach is missing. I just don't understand why the automotive industry in our country cannot join hands and work in a consortium approach with number of institutions, at least for those technologies which are pre-competitive, a solar car, or that kind of things. Even that is not happening. I think industry also has to come forward and make more efforts. We have even on the panel our guests from industry, and but I think industry should also look for long-term relationships with academia. That will generate very fruitful interaction. And of course, when we talk of academia-industry interaction, let us not forget one very major sector of Indian industry, that is the rural sector, and which is also related to what we call a societal impact of all that we are doing in institutions of higher learning. So I think we need to interact much more with the rural sector, and of course Professor Vyas mentioned about small scale industry, startups, a recent trend where our students are actually preferring to join startups at much better salaries. Is a very good indicator, it's a very good trend which I really appreciate, and which will definitely generate more interaction with industry. I think I like to stop at this point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a short tea break. We'll continue this panel discussion after the tea break and then continue for lunch. In the second session, we'll have more of industry panelists from the industries. So all are now cordially invited to join us for a tea. Now we will continue with the second session of the conclave on the employability of graduating students. I would request all our new distinguished panelists to please come on the stage. Professor Anil S. Sahasrabudhe, Chairman, All India Council for Technical Education. Please come. President Academia, Kumaraguru College of Technology, Coimbatore. Professor Kshitij Gupta, Director, IIT. Dr. S. Kapoor, MD and CEO of Country Strategy Business Consultant Private Limited. Mr. Yogesh Andley, FICCI. Mr. S. Nagarjan, Managing Director, Mother Dairy Fruits and Vegetable Private Limited. Dr. S.C. Kapoor, ex-GM of BHEL and Director of Radiant Institute of Engineering, Punjab. Once again, welcome all. Moving on, I now request Dr. Ashish Shah, Chief Coordinator of India International Science Festival, to formally welcome our guests. Professor Anil S. Sahasrabudhe, Chairman, All India Council for Technical Education. Professor Professor J.S. Rao, President Academics, Kumarapur College of Technology, Coimbatore. Professor Kshitij Gupta, Director, IIT. Dr. S. Kapoor, MD and CEO of Country Strategy Business Consultant Private Limited. Mr. Yogesh Anglin, FICCI. Mr. S. Nagarajan, Managing Director, Mother Dairy Fruits and Vegetables Private Limited. Dr. S. C. Kapoor, ex-GM of BHEL and Director of Gradient Institute of Engineering, Punjab. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start the second round. To start with, I would like to invite Mr. Yogesh Anglin from FICCI to say a few words.
Good afternoon. As Vijay, my friend, shared that he's been a student of this institute, and he now comes so often because he missed classes when he was a student here, and he's making up for it. So am I. I'm also now of this institute, and I guess I'm making up for all the classes that I bunked when I was a student. Having said so, I wish to bring an element to the attention of this August gathering. That in our education system, and especially in a higher education system, and more so in engineering education system, one thing that gets disconnected is the heart. Our entire focus becomes a focus on learning certain things which we find are useful only to a certain extent when we go out and start working. When we go out and start working, we start dealing with people. And we as engineers who are trained here lose that side of working with engineers. And if we could bring this aspect into our engineering education, that would be a tremendous contribution. Why this heart becomes so important? I'll share with you an experience of last week. Last, we have seen what's happened in Chennai. And my colleague, my partner, based in Chennai, had traveled to Bombay, and when he was going back, his flight got diverted to Bangalore. Fine, so Monday evening he landed in Bangalore. Tuesday we were hoping that things will improve, we will have some travel, he'll be able to reach back Chennai, his home and his office and everything. Could not happen. But Thursday morning there was no visibility that things will improve. And we realized that the situation is going from bad to worse in Chennai. And we said, okay, now we are stuck, we are stranded. What is it that we can do? We realized we can do something for people in Chennai, and said, okay, what do people in Chennai would need? So talk to a few friends and they said, can you arrange for some blankets and some medicines? And we started sending messages around. We sent message to the senior most bureaucrat in Bangalore, whom we knew, again an IIT Delhi alumni. We sent message to our own friends. We sent message to philanthropic organizations that in the next one day we would like to have about 5,000 blankets reaching Chennai. And we thought that if we could 7,000 blankets could reach there, that would be a phenomenal, we would have done our job, at least some contribution. You'll be surprised that within 48 hours we had commitment for more than 500,000 blankets. Okay? How did this come about? Not from engineering solutions. It only came from the heart of people. When we were able to touch their heart, the spontaneity and scale could be achieved. And suddenly we have realized that we've been able to create a small group in Chennai which is able to coordinate all these activities, and these people are all IT professionals. They have been coding day in and day out. They got stranded. They were sitting in their office and they all said that, okay, we can now utilize, we are anyway stranded here. We can't go home because there's water all around. We might as well reorganize ourselves and become a part of this service effort. But now, this is the quality of heart that is required to be developed. I'll also share with you another experience, contrast. We are all sitting here like this. I'm speaking here and all of you sitting and listening, and on the dais we have our esteemed panelists. Last week for 2 days, we were talking about how can we bring about design, entrepreneurship, innovation into leadership training programs. And do you know where we were doing it? We were doing it at the Om Shanti retreat, which is the Brahma Kumari's ashram near Manesar. About 35 of us. The diversity was 50% women, roughly 50% men, gender diversity. There were people from 3 continents, India, Europe, US, North America, Canada. Age from 20 years to 80 years. Profession from doctor, engineer, journalist, teacher, management experts, industrialist. Now, when you get such a group together for 2 days and allow them to look at this question of how do we bring about design, innovation, entrepreneurship into a leadership program, you can imagine the kind of discussions that it can generate. And these discussions were so enriching that not only we got very good ideas about what we could do in our own curriculum that we teach in one of the leadership institutes that I am associated with, but each one who was present there could take back something for himself that he or she could apply to his own self, in his own circumstances, in his own career. And this dialogue for this two days was facilitated by a lady from Seattle, Ann Stadler, who herself is 80-year-old. So, these are the new ways of involving and engaging diverse set of people and trying to find solution to various problems that we encountered. We looked at Stanford Biodesign School, where IIT Delhi, Stanford, Medical Institute, they all collaborate together to create solution for the healthcare. We talked about Singularity University where they come and talk about the problems that the whole world is facing and how can technology be used to improve or to work on this problem. The doctor talked about young doctor from Canada, a trained radiologist, that he some time ago developed heart complication, cardiac complication, and became a patient. And the moment he became a patient, that's when he realized how broken the healthcare system was, even in the most advanced countries. If the doctors themselves are completely burnt out, the medical staff is completely burnt out, you can imagine the kind of service they will be able to give. So he said, can I now create a new way of healthcare delivery? So he shared about his perspective, he talked to different people, and all these conversations were happening simultaneously. All these conversations were happening simultaneously. Now, we got very, very rich data out of this. Imagine if instead of just one person like me speaking it who hardly has a knowledge and who is not even as knowledgeable as Professor Rao, who's spent his lifetime teaching. But if you can harness this 50 people who are sitting there and their knowledge, their information, their passion into this discussion, the kind of inputs that we generate would be fantastic. Each one will be able to take back something for him or herself that he or she can go and apply in his own surroundings right here and now. And the kind of improvements that it can lead to is absolutely mind-boggling. We would be happy to support such initiatives. We would be happy to come and participate in them. And anytime we have offered, I'm an IIT Delhi alumni, and within IIT Delhi alumni community we keep doing such things. So before I close, let me just reiterate, can we bring heart and mind and their balance into our engineering education? And if you can do that, then the kind of graduates that we will be developing or preparing would, to my mind, be much better prepared to deal with the issues of workplace, the issues of society, and the issues of humanity. Thank you. That he some time ago developed heart complication, cardiac complication, and became a patient. And the moment he became a patient, that's when he realized how broken the healthcare system was, even in the most advanced countries. If the doctors themselves are completely burnt out, the medical staff is completely burnt out, you can imagine the kind of service they will be able to give. So he said, can I now create a new way of healthcare delivery? So he shared about his perspective, he talked to different people, and all these conversations were happening simultaneously. All these conversations were happening simultaneously. Now, we got very, very rich data out of this. Imagine if instead of just one person like me speaking it who hardly has a knowledge and who is not even as knowledgeable as Professor Rao, who's spent his lifetime teaching. But if you can harness this 50 people who are sitting there and their knowledge, their information, their passion into this discussion, the kind of inputs that we generate would be fantastic. Each one will be able to take back something for him or herself that he or she can go and apply in his own surroundings right here and now. And the kind of improvements that it can lead to is absolutely mind-boggling. We would be happy to support such initiatives. We would be happy to come and participate in them. And anytime we have offered, I'm an IIT Delhi alumni, and within IIT Delhi alumni community, we keep doing such things. So before I close, let me just reiterate: can we bring heart and mind and their balance into our engineering education? And if you can do that, then the kind of graduates that we will be developing or preparing would, to my mind, be much better prepared to deal with the issues of workplace, the issues of society, and the issues of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Now I would like to request Dr. S. Kapoor, MD and CEO of Country Strategy Business Consulting Private Limited. Dr. Kapoor.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to interact with you. Let me just say a few words about where I come from. I'm an IIT Conclave alumni, one of the very earliest batches, the fourth batch, graduated in 68. After that, I went to the US and did my master's and PhD at the Case Institute of Technology. Worked for many companies, but for about 20 years, I've been the CEO of 3 of Germany's largest companies in India. And the reason I mention it is because I'm going to draw on each of these 3 in terms of the lessons they give us of how industry, academia, working together can improve employability. So let me first start with my time at the Case Institute of Technology. At the Case Institute of Technology, the Material Science Department, as in every other department, we had a group of about 30 companies who were our so-called industrial sponsors. Each one of these companies works with us, with the department, to design and define the projects for research. Each one of them supported at least one PhD in terms of contributing over a period of 4 to 5 years. Every year, we presented the outcomes of our research to these, and over a period of time, our research became totally aligned to the needs of industry. So this is one opportunity, I think, which you can take, and it was really this idea which then prompted me in my role as the chairperson for technology within CII to suggest that we could try the same thing here, which culminated in what we call the Prime Minister's Fellowship. The first 100 fellowships taken up by Indian industry, where we've supported students for PhD, the idea being work in areas which are relevant. So this is something I just want to point out. I think this is a great opportunity. If we look at the various departments within the best of the institutions, and if they then start creating small groups, maybe 10, 20, 30 industries, who are in the area in which they work, who then relate to them and talk about what are the needs of industry, what are the challenges of the economy in that area, and together define the research areas. And in turn, those industries, of course, support financially some of that work. I think this can be a great way forward. Let me come to my time in Germany, and I want to, as I said, I worked for about 20 years, headed as CEO 3 of the largest German companies in India. In fact, at one time I had 1,000 engineers working for me in one of my engineering units. So I want to come back to, when we talk of employability, I think we need to look at the very basics, and I think that starts with school education. And I want to just share what school education is. We know what school education over here is. All focused on how am I going to get the right marks to be able to get into the next institution. And I think a lot of people have spoken about this, so I won't do that. But in Germany, education has 3 elements. One of the elements of education is what we talk about over here, which means the social sciences, the physical sciences. The second element are the life skills. So those are critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity. That's a major focus. And the third element is, where am I living and what am I likely to do? So if I'm going to, because at the end of the day, unlike us, Germans don't migrate. So people would like to stay in the areas where they are. So what are the job opportunities? Is there an opportunity in the agricultural area? So should I also introduce an element of that kind of education? That's something which they do in their education system. And if we start doing this, I think we will start solving a lot of our problems of the quality of education, which will allow us to create employability even for those who don't go beyond school. Coming to the next step, what happens in engineering, or even let me say, everybody knows about the dual education system, dual training system in Germany. How does it work? In the dual education system in Germany, the curriculum is designed and defined on a continuous basis by industry. So the chambers of commerce are the ones who design the curriculum. It is not designed by some autonomous body, and therefore this curriculum is a live curriculum. It is continuously evolving, and of course it then combines that you spend 20% of your time in industry and you spend 80% of your time in the working. I mean, in the sort of academic institutions. If you are going to be in the vocational space, then the ratio is the opposite. So if we introduce this element of defining the curriculum based upon what are the requirements of society and industry on a continuous basis, I think the relevance of our education will dramatically improve, and so will employability. And here I come back to a small example from IIT Kanpur, which I'm an alumni of, and I'm not very proud of this example, but I think I need to quote it. We were all back in Kanpur for our Golden Jubilee celebration, and we had a chance to be able to talk to the Board of Governors. So 5 of us were requested that Ashok Misra and I were saying that. He was with us too. We went to the Board of Governors and we started talking about, because we were interacting with some of the faculty who were our batchmates. Some of them came back, and we were teaching at IIT Kanpur. We have an eminent person from IIT Kanpur sitting right across the table, and I think I really appreciate what you've been talking about. So, you know, when we were talking to, first thing when we were walking around the university, we asked our colleagues, you know, how many, because everybody talks about, you know, not enough PhD students in India. So I asked them, how many PhD students do you have in chemical engineering? So he said, we have 100. I said, 100? That's shocking. He said, oh, you know, we have 20 professors, and each one of them needs at least 5 students. So we have 100 students, so I said, are you able to get quality students? He says, you know, we've had to make some compromises. So these are some of the maladies which go forward. The next question we ask them is, what are the areas you're working on? They say, you know, we're working on those areas where we can do research and publish papers, because that is how we are measured. Our promotions, etc., are not based on anything. So we will not touch anything new. We will stay in the comfort zone we are. And therefore, as a net result, they're doing things which are irrelevant to the needs of society. I mean, I'm sure they're making great contributions, but if you ask me, are they relevant to society? Are they relevant to what industry needs? Because you get what you measure, you get what you incentivize, and since you don't measure and you don't incentivize these things, you don't get them. So these are some of the areas, I think, which would be very interesting if we could start looking at some of these areas. Another very interesting thing I'll also tell you, and I think I don't know what it is in India. I was sitting with the head of the universities in Canada, and we were talking about why research in the United States is so far ahead than research in Canada. He said, you know what? He says, in America you get paid 9 months salary. You don't get paid 12 months. The other 3 months, the professor has to earn it through projects, through interaction with industry, etc. And therefore, they're all incentivized to work with industry, to work in relevant areas. We in Canada pay people for 12 months. So some of these ideas, I think if we can incorporate, we might be able to do something more interesting. Thank you very much.
To go through the question paper, let alone answer it. So I don't want to claim anywhere near any of the, so sometimes I get very scared when I'm talking to some of the alumni of IITs, because I don't think I even had the capability to walk into one. Having said that, I come from the dairy industry and the food industry. We are a pretty large industry by itself, and I think we are hugely plagued with, if I can non-application of sciences. And to that extent, if after the 5-7 minutes that I intend taking, if it excites any of the faculty members or the academicians, I think we'll be doing yeoman service to the country at large. I come from a company which deals with fruits and vegetables, milk and dairy products, and edible oil. And I'll give you a few instances to really indicate to you why we are seriously looking west and not looking within. Because the kind of development that has moved there is beyond comprehension. And I mean it. And sometimes I wonder whether food industry is part of the entire engineering space. Is engineering restricted to what we have defined it many years ago? Because I was immensely pleased when I heard that it's about science and application of science is what is engineering. If that be the case, sad to say, at least the food industry is completely out of it. It's either restricted to say that this shall be done by the agricultural universities, this shall be done by the food technology universities. Somewhere the assimilation of technology into the food space or the agriculture space solely lacking. Okay. I am a little bit of a cynic on this issue, so please bear with me on where I am coming from. Coming back to readiness of industry, if you look at a person's career, he joins a company, we expect functional knowledge. We also expect over a 20-year period for him or her to move across functions. So the first thing which we seek from people is ability to pick up various functions, ability to link with various functions, ability to collaborate, which people have been using this term. Secondly, you're also expecting people to take the next level job and the second level job, which means, are you capable of dropping that functional competence and getting into leadership competence? Now, both of these are critical because otherwise what will happen is you can remain in that small functional space and continue to be there. So how do you really identify, how do we groom people? And I thought a lot of statements have been made about the whole scientific inquiry, collaboration, leadership, communication. These are all, I don't want to get into the aspects of competences towards becoming a manager or being employed in the industry. That's not my content. So coming back to the young college students, what I'm planning to do is really take you through 2 or 3 spaces. For me, what is fundamental is passion for what you are doing. And how does it play? For me, I'm looking at 3 things. A, passion for the industry in which you are working in. Because there is no industry which is good or bad or better or worse. Now, it's a function of where do I want to be. And sometimes, you need to ridicule yourself to really get where you are. For example, I keep telling people that मैं सब्जी बेचता हूँ, मैं तेल बेचता हूँ, मैं दूध बेचता हूँ. Now, believe me, there is, sorry ladies here, there is no sex in all of these 3 things. The sexy stuff is sitting somewhere else. Now, what happens is, are you really interested in what you are doing? Because the passion for the industry is fundamental. Second is passion for learning. Because if you do not have the learning competence and you think I know it, you are in trouble. The third one is passion for application of whatever little you have learned. So I move now very quickly into the whole area of the previous panel spoke of outcome-based stuff, and we see serious concerns. Productivity of the agriculture sector is the lowest in the world. We work by numbers. We are the world's largest milk producer in the country. Our milk production is less than 1/10 or 1/15 of the global averages. It's terrible. But we still have managed to do a lot of developments and things have moved. I'm not coming from a point of view of, I'm only coming from a point of view of what is it that we can do. Please understand, we are talking 350 million cows in the country. 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions are because of the cattle. So you can meet any norm you want outside from an environment point of view if you manage your productivity of cows and cattle. Huge advantage, huge opportunity, people don't recognize it. I'll go back. Almost 90% of our water is used today in agriculture, out of which sugarcane, wheat and rice will contribute about 75% of that 90, or 80% of that 90. We are extremely poor in water consumption and water management. Now we can continue to say that we have water issues. You can save 2 taps of water in your house to reduce it. It will not do anything. The problem is elsewhere, and how do we really get that whole water consumption really good? Now I'll give you 2-3 things which I have picked up in the last 5-6 years. The Israeli team has actually converted agriculture into a manufacturing science. They measure the rate at which water moves up the stem to the leaf. How can I curl the leaf so that water doesn't get, you have the transpiration of leaf water from the stomata of the leaf. How can I convert it? How can I fold it so that the water doesn't go out? I have to save water. I have no option. Water is the most expensive commodity in Israel. Those guys have taken everything possible. How can I reduce the flow of water in the tree? How can I reduce the flow of water in the plant? How can I reduce the transpiration losses? So they've gone to every extent possible of measuring it. I'll come to the next aspect. Cows move. And the rate at which the cows move determines the health of the cow. How often does it go to drink water? Does it drink enough water? Now what they have done in Israel is every cow is literally like a Fitbit technology devices. They put it around the collar of the neck. They've wired it so they know any cow which doesn't go near the water in the last 4 hours, 8 hours, immediate signals come. They know that this cow is having some problem. Now this is technology application. Now please, this is where I come from when the previous speaker said that industry and academia has to move. How much can we guys keep going? How much is the universities really looking at where all can this be applied? How do we really take it forward? And I've just given you 2 examples. I'll take you through the third. We have the most possibly difficult product is coriander. You pull it off the plant, in about 3 to 4 hours it will become black if it's not kept in the right temperature conditions. So we said, hey, we have to do something about it. So we said, okay, we need a modified air, modified atmosphere management around coriander, palak, all of this. Because we keep using, stories, war stories around the fact that 40% of our produce is wasted, blah, 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 blah. It's very easy to make these statements, and it's a reality. So now we go to figure out, hey, what can we do? So then we start talking to, unfortunately, we have to only go west. So we go to DuPont, we go to the other guys, and they say, hey, we've got a modified atmosphere temperature possibility. We'll give you small films which we've done the management of how to retain moisture, how to allow air, oxygen to flow. Now, this is simple chemical processes which any chemical engineering student here in this institute will know. He will know it. Where I'm coming from is, I'm just giving you these 2-3 examples of why I earnestly appeal to the hallowed institutions to really say, because we guys are recognizing it now. We are seeing it, all this is coming from the West. That's why I started off by saying we are going West, because that's the only way we can come back here. The fourth area for me is, it's a little unfortunate that we have a fantastic heritage, because it's also a curse many times. We have answers to food which sometimes is a a blessing, sometimes it's a curse. I'll give you small examples. You know, when we fast, we break fast using simple makhana. Many of you will know. It's amongst the wonder foods. Unfortunately, we have not done enough research as to why is it so. What is the science behind whatever was done 300, 400 years ago? We don't know. We are not taking the goodness of these things back into the way we cook, the way we create food, the way we do things. Now, somewhere we lost it. The science behind the inquiry behind why are we doing this? Why do we eat dry fruits? Why do we just do it because it's told to us and it's nice to do and we like it and we continue to do it. But the science behind it is lost. And that is what those guys in the West are really running after, the science of all that we have done. And I might sound a little jingoistic at it, but we are providing the inputs, they are doing the science behind it, and they will monetize it. Then afterwards, there's no point in us saying, hey, those guys are monetizing something which we knew. Sorry. They applied themselves, they got the science, they paid for the science, they therefore have the right to monetize it. I'll give you one last example and then I'll shut. You know, we have a huge struggle with the greens during the summer months because it tends to deteriorate fastest. We've been working with, I don't know the space in which part of the engineering space it will come. We're trying to develop a misting technology because you have to mist it with water. It has to be sufficient that it is kept in a humid environment but will not fall droplets of water on the leaf. So we said, okay, what all should we do? So we've gone behind the, the aerosol space. Then we went behind your fire extinguishers because they are great misting stuff. So we've gone through all of that to figure out, is there a better way to actually do a misting of water on? It's a very simple thing that we need. I'm just leaving you with these 4 or 5 examples of basic application. And I hope that somewhere we, in the academic circles, look at some of these things and say, hey, what is technical education? Is technical education only for the engineering colleges? How much of that do we really shift into the other aspects? And can we really co-create some of the interactions between science and application? And how do we really enable this process? Thank you very much. And they will monetize it. Then afterwards, there's no point in us saying, hey, those guys are monetizing something which we knew. Sorry. They applied themselves, they got the science, they paid for the science, they therefore have the right to monetize it. I'll give you one last example and then I'll shut. We have a huge struggle with the greens during the summer months because it tends to deteriorate fastest. We've been working with, I don't know the space in which part of the engineering space it will come. We're trying to develop a misting technology because you have to mist it with water. It has to be sufficient that it is kept in a humid environment but will not fall droplets of water on the leaf. So we said, okay, what all should we do? So we've gone behind the, the aerosol space. Then we went behind your fire extinguishers because they are great misting stuff. So we've gone through all of that to figure out, is there a better way to actually do a misting of water on? It's a very simple thing that we need. I'm just leaving you with these 4 or 5 examples of basic application. And I hope that somewhere we, in the academic circles, look at some of these things and say, hey, what is technical education? Is technical education only for the engineering colleges? How much of that do we really shift into the other aspects? And can we really co-create some of the interactions between science and application, and how do we really enable this process? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Great speech.